Mixed martial arts. To the untrained eye, it looks like chaos. Understand? MMA isn't chaos, it's layers. 7 layers that stack on top one another, each one harder to master than the last. These layers decide who becomes a journeyman, who becomes a champion, and who ascends into legend. Today, we'll peel back those layers one by one. Layer 1, the surface, the hands and the feet. Striking, punches, kicks, knees, elbows is the most visible part of the fight, and it's what draws hit, but it's more range, timing, feints, angles, setups, and all these dictate whether a strike lands clean or glances off. This is the most honest layer because everyone can knock out. The crowd roars when a head kick lands, not when a fighter controls wrist grips on the mat. That's why striking has always been the hook of MMA's popularity. But here's the catch, striking is fragile. You can be the slickest striker in the world, but if you can't handle what lies beneath this surface, you will be exposed. Fighters like Sean O'Malley, Israel Adesanya, and Alex Pereira are perfect examples of layer 1. O'Malley lives on the surface. He represents everything that makes striking electric: his fluid combinations, his ability to finish fights standing, his creative movement, all of it captures the eye. Israel Adesanya takes striking to an artistic level. His distance control, counter striking, and the octagon show the highest form of surface mastery. Alex Pereira is the nightmare version of striking. Pereira is a hammer. His left hook has ended fights instantly, sometimes before his opponents even realize the danger. He doesn't need volume or trickery, he just needs the opening, and the fight is over. Pereira embodies the terrifying reality of the surface. Layer 2, the base, wrestling and takedowns. If striking is the surface, wrestling is the base that supports that fight. It decides where the battle takes place. Think of wrestling as the steering wheel of MMA. You want to stand? Then you defend the takedown. Do you want to grapple? Then you force it to the mat. The reason wrestling has produced so many champions is simple: control. Control is king. Without it, your striking is just a gamble. Daniel Cormier is a pure example of wrestling as the base. An Olympic level wrestler, he used his takedowns and clinch control to dominate heavyweights much larger than him. His ability to decide whether fight stays standing or hit the mat showed the essence of this layer: control. With his wrestling as his base, DC dictates the terms and nearly every fight he had. Layer 3, the web, jiu-jitsu and submissions. Once the fight hits the ground, you step into the web. Brazilian jiu-jitsu is unlike any other layer because it's invincible until it's too late. The web isn't about the brute force, it's about the traps. It's about making your opponent think they're safe when in reality every movement just entangles them deeper. A wrist grab here, a leg hook there, and suddenly the fight is over. Jiu-jitsu represents inevitability. You can defend a punch, you can sprawl a takedown, but once Charles Oliveira is the embodiment of the web. His record for submission speaks for itself. His record for finishes speaks for itself. He thrives in chaos, snatches necks and arms in scrambles where most fighters just try to survive, without realizing the trap has already been closed. Layer 4, the engine, conditioning and pace. Every technique in MMA, striking, wrestling, submissions, depends on one thing: energy. Conditioning is the invincible engine that powers the fight. A fighter's gas tank isn't just a physical tool, it's a psychological weapon. When you know you can fight at a furious pace for 25 minutes, you break your opponent mentally long before you break them physically. A skilled striker with no cardio is just a highlight waiting to happen. A world-class grappler who gasses out becomes helpless. The engine is what keeps other layers alive. Merab Dashvili is the poster man for weaponized cardio. He doesn't just push a pace, he forces you to fight his kind of fight until you collapse. Anthony Hernandez brings the same relentless rhythm. He overwhelms his activity, turning skilled opponents into exhausted shells. This layer is proof that stamina can be as dangerous as a knockout punch. Layer 5, the soul, toughness and willpower. But toughness isn't about skill, it's about refusing to break. It's the ability to take punishment that should end you and still keep going. MMA is unique because unlike most sports, it isn't just about performance, it's about survival. The soul is tested when your body says no, but your heart says yes. It's when you're battered, bloodied, and exhausted, and yet you walk forward. Max Holloway embodies this layer. His volume striking is impressive, but what makes him truly special is his refusal to quit. He absorbs punishment and somehow gets stronger. Dustin Poirier shows the same spirit. Wars with Justin Gaethje, Eddie Alvarez, and others where his willpower carried him past the point most fighters would have surrendered. This layer is the difference between fighters who are good and fighters who are unforgettable. He's not invincible, he's not untouchable. He's been knocked down, comes back swinging with heart. Kind of toughness that doesn't come from genetics, but from years of walking through fire. Layer 6, the mind, IQ, and strategy. Up to this point, we've talked about physical tools and mental toughness, but the mind, the fight IQ, what separates great fighters from champions. Fight IQ is about more than just knowing techniques. It's about pattern recognition. It's about adaptation. It's about staying calm in chaos and finding the smartest path to victory. The body can be trained, but the mind must be sharpened. The best fighters use their opponents like puzzles. They find the weakness, exploit it, and then dismantle everything around it. But it's not just knowing how to dismantle the opponents, it's about having those skill sets and knowing when to use them. The guys with the high fight IQ are not worried about putting on an entertaining fight or proving something to everybody else. They're just concerned about winning. And we're talking about fighters like Alexander Volkanovski, George St. Pierre, and John Jones. Alexander Volkanovski shows this is the way he adjusts mid-fight, turning danger into dominance. GSP built entire careers off perfect game plans, making elite fighters look average. And John Jones may be the greatest example. Used his creativity and opportunism to find advantages that nobody else could. This layer proves that MMA is chess, not checkers. And then we have Islam Makhachev, the modern embodiment of a strategic mastery. Islam doesn't just rely on Dagestani wrestling base, he tailors his approach to each opponent. Against strikers, he uses his pressure and grappling to nullify their weapons. Against grapplers, he uses his evolving striking to surprise them. He's not just executing a game plan, he's rewriting it in real time. Look at his fights with Charles Oliveira and Alexander Volkanovski. Islam represents how fight IQ isn't just being about the fastest or strongest, it's about being the clearest thinker in chaos. At this layer, the fight is no longer physical, it's mental warfare, and Islam is one of today's best generals. Layer 7, the mask, aura, and marketability. The final layer of MMA is not what happens inside the cage, it's also what lingers outside of it. A fighter can be elite in every other layer, but to transcend into superstardom, they need the mask, aura, presence, and the ability to capture the imagination of fans. This is the mythology surrounding a fighter. It's the way to walk to the cage, the mystique of their story, the fear they inspire, or the charisma that makes millions lean forward when they speak. The mask is what transforms an athlete into a legend. Khamzat Chimaev has the aura of chaos, the sense that at any moment he might maul an opponent in seconds. Ilia Topuria channels it with swagger and confidence, his ability to sell himself as the next inevitable king. And then there's Francis Ngannou, a man whose mask is built from both myth and reality. His aura begins with his story, from working in the sand mines in Cameroon to homelessness in France to becoming the most feared knockout artist in UFC history. That journey alone creates a presence that fans feel before he even throws a punch. But when there's a sheer terror of his power, one punch from Ngannou doesn't just knock people out, it erases them. The highlight reels of his KOs are some of the most shared replay clips in combat sports. His aura is that of the inevitability. Step in the cage with Ngannou and you might not walk out the same. What elevates him even higher is how he carried the aura outside the UFC. By leaving to box Tyson Fury and nearly beating him, Ngannou proved his brand wasn't just tied to MMA. He showed that his mask transcends organizations, sports, and borders. Ilia Topuria has the swagger of the mask. He carries himself so confidently, one might think is delusional, but when you see him put his money where his mouth is, it literally shuts you up. There's nothing to be said. One of the most well-rounded fighters who has almost as equal knockouts as he has submissions. And then we talk about Khamzat Chimaev, the mask of chaos. This man mauls opponents, breaks their teeth, knocks people out, and submits people easily. The aura of chaos is the embodiment of Khamzat Chimaev. Knowing him from his first fight, it's obvious to tell he was an inevitable champion. The surface, the base, the web, the engine, the soul, the mind, the mask. Together, these layers don't just build fighters, they build legends. And when all the layers are peeled back, the question remains, what's left at the core? Because in MMA, greatness isn't just about the fight you win, it's about the layers you master.